Photoshop. I call it also Miracle Worker. I use it mainly to edit images, and one of the questions I get a lot is resizing images, and if you want to send an image to someone, because usually you'd get like, let's say 3 or 5 mega image and it doesn't get sent through mail, how do you resize it? So Photoshop just it's a pixel-based software, and resizing is an important issue because you need to understand, for example, how it works in terms of pixels and resolution, etc. If I would take this image, for example, first of all, on the view for screen mode, you have the standard screen mode, or this. If you want to change between them, you use the shortcut F. So here with a black background, or here, because this could be like distracting if you're working on the screen. I won't explain each tool as long as I'm working. I'll get to it each one at a time. If you go to image mode, if you're using it just for screen, it's mainly RGB, and this is what if you take an image by camera, it's RGB. If you're using it for print, you would go see MYK. But it's mostly RGB that we use it for. Here we have the image size and we have the canvas size, and obviously the difference is the canvas size does not interfere with the image. So if I want to make my canvas size, here I can make, it gives me the size of the canvas. I can say I want to add, like, let's say 3 centimeters all around with the background color white, and it adds it. It adds width 3, and I say I want the height also to add a 3, so I'll have a 3 centimeters frame around it. So that's an easy way to create a frame for the image. For the image size, so here the resolution, it says it's 180 pixel per inch, and this is the size of it. And if you want to see the actual size, Command or Control 1. So this it's a good quality image. If it was like a 72 resolution, maybe it would have, if you press Command 1, it will give you this size. So it gives you an impression of the actual size of the image. So when it comes to image sizing, if you want to resize the image, this Resample Image is a crucial option. So let's say if it's off, it will keep this 3000 by 4000 pixels. This is how much an image contains as information. If I take it on, and let's say I completely resize it, I want to make it bigger. It's 42 now, I'll make it 60. Pixels are added. Photoshop is adding these pixels. These pixels are not part of the image, so it's getting pixelated. It's getting bigger in size, but it's not better in quality. Sometimes you want to use this trick if you have a really tiny image, and even if it gets a bit pixelated, it's already pixelated, but you need it bigger, then this is helpful. But if you want to keep the quality of the image, it should be off. And it will resize, it will keep it. The pixels are there, but they're rearranged. If you want to send it by mail, if I go 72 pixels per inch, this is the new size of it. It's 104 centimeters. So that's the way to kind of work around the size of the image. Now the easy way, if you're using it for web and you want a really compact size, and here in File we have Save for Web. So here, so the preset, you save it as JPEG, and it should tell you like the quality. You control the quality. If you keep it around 60 to 70%, which is it's still okay. And if you save it, just save as, it will give you a more compact image, which is sendable by mail. And you can see the preview of it. It still didn't lose that much quality. So that's when it comes to resizing images. Now, I'll get to one of the tricks that Photoshop added in the latest version. Sometimes, let's say if I want to rescale the image, and here you have different selection options you have. So you have a rectangular, this is the marquee tool, a rectangular, circle, the elliptical, or it's just by row. If I want to select the whole image, Command A or Control A. It's not allowing me to do it. I don't know if it's the version, I tried it on this image, but if you press Control T or Command T, which is right click, it gives you you see these edges, so you can do transformation on the image. Here, the content aware scale, you can scale this image down, and you have it like lesser in width, but this remains untouched. It's like you're cropping, but you're not cropping because you're not losing data. If you want to try it on another image, if you have one, but the option is available. Sorry about this. I'm going to use another example to work on adjustments. If you use an image and you want to change like the contrast, the levels, color balance, the hue and saturation. I'll take this image for example. You know, sometimes when you take images of, let's say, a canvas or something that's supposedly like, aligned, and sometimes it's out of perspective. So one way, I mean, here this is a bit of an extreme example, but sometimes, also the shortcut is Control A and Control T. And if I press Control or Command again on the edges, notice the change in cursor? Is it obvious? But once you put the cursor over the edges and you press Command, it changes. And then I'm kind of playing around the perspective in that sense. So here, so let's say I can use, this is the ruler, I can use the guide. So let's say I don't like it, it's not. I need it a bit more straight. So maybe I can just keep it like that. There is a bit of distortion that's happening. It depends how much you're willing to compromise in that sense. And just press Enter. And if I click outside, it should go. And if I press Control semicolon, the guides disappear. If I want them to show again, they will appear. Now, the best way to work around images when it comes to retouching, because you don't want to mess up and you can't retrieve the original image. So the best way to work with Photoshop is to always work with layers. And here in the layers, you have a button here that has all the adjustments. And it's the same way. If you go to Image Adjustment, they're also there. But if you use this one, it's applied on the image once and for all, and you can't edit it. You can edit, but some information is lost. So here, let's say I want to work around the levels and contrast. Just if I go to levels, I'll see the layer here, and if I make it darker, if I turn it off, I still have the original image. I can always just edit on it. The layer is there. Now, so I'll just go over the different options I have. I don't usually use them all. Sometimes it depends on what you need. So the levels to work around the highlights, the shadows. the hue and saturation, if you, when it's kind of working around black and white as well, and even like what kind of, this is if you want really extreme effects with the hue. And if you don't want the effect anymore, the adjustment, you can just throw the layer away, and it goes in. Make sure that the layer that you want the adjustment on is selected, because if you press, let's say I'm on the levels, it's different how it's going to be applied on it. So always, it changes. Once you change the hierarchy of levels, the adjustments change as well. Selective color, let's say, here it shows, I want, for example, the yellow, let's say. I don't want them to be as yellow, you just, so you control the colors as well. Let's say I want to add, remember the canvas size. Maybe I want to add more white outside, I want to make it bigger. So here I can play around the canvas size. So I want to add from the top, let's say 4 centimeters. Did it not? Yeah. So it's because it happens that I have white already in the image, so I can add the white as well. Another trick, Photoshop. So let's say I don't want these people to kind of show in the image, I want to get rid of them. There are many ways of doing it, and in Photoshop, usually to get one thing, you can have many ways of doing it. It's just you develop your own method of working. If I select them, if I press the delete, I'm going to have here many options. If I delete, if I press foreground color, it will fill it with black, background color with white, or I choose another color. If I keep the content aware on, it will try to take information from the whole image to kind of patch it out. And sometimes it doesn't do a good job because it depends on how much you can do it. So see here, it didn't do it like the best way, it depends on the image. Another way of doing it, here you have the patch tool. And this one, you have all the kind of healing tools if you want to retouch images. So the patch tool, it's the manual way of doing it. So I draw my outline, but I'm telling it from where to take the information from. So I'm guiding the process of doing it. But notice now, it's not going to be done the neatest way possible, so I'm going to have to patch after it. So notice here, it's just, for me, it's a bit like lighter. When you select something, so you have the refine edge here. I can feather it so that it's not harsh what I'm applying on. I see it needs a bit of darkening. Let's say maybe I should. So now it works better. It fits in with the image. So here, it's the mask. There's a mask with it. And this adjustment, this effect, is only applied on the white area that I've selected. Good thing working with masks, if I use when I'm working on masks and I use the brush, it's just like an eraser. And the way to increase the size of it, it's brackets, open bracket, it decreases, the right bracket increases, the left bracket decrease. So here I'm on this layer, it's selected. If I'm here and this is what's going to happen. If I'm on this layer, notice the change that's happening or not? Because I'm deleting the mask, so which is allowing the effect to take place on the unmasked area. So this is the content aware if you erase something. So here in the history panel, it allows me to see all my history, what I've done, and it has the limit, a limit to how many steps I can go back. But if you see the difference in the image, how I started, now how I ended, so it's a good way to keep track of what you've done, just kind of comparing. So that's one example. Can move into another example. If I'm working with adjustments as well. So the image is too yellow. So can I have suggestions of what I can do?
Just a contrast or tone?
I need to work on the contrast, but also, like we said, hue. Yeah. I can work with hue. And here I have the option to use yellows. So I'm controlling the yellows. I can make them less saturated. So I'm kind of dimming the yellow in it, because it's just too much. Or, if not the hue, I can work with selective color. And I don't want a lot of yellow and see, but it's still reddish, so I can decrease the magenta. So that will work as well. If I want to play with the contrast, I make sure to set the layer again. Make it darker. Here, when working with levels, you have these dropper. So this is for black. So if I say I select it and I go, I need this area to be my blackest area, so it adjusts accordingly. Or this is the blackest. It has white. Let's say I want this to be my whitest area. So it kind of guides you, but you shouldn't always trust what it gives you. So just, it's a guide. It's a guide, but you always let yourself be in control of the adjustment. So let's say I have this image. Just I'm going to be summing up what I've talked about, but I'm just going to apply all the different options on this one. So when I open it, I just want to make sure the size, first of all. The shortcut for this Control-Alt-I, or you go to image size. I wanted a really good resolution image. I'll just have it 300 pixels per inch. I don't like the levels, the contrast in it. It needs a bit of more contrast, so I will work with the levels. Let's say I want, I won't trust it exactly, but this is, if it's going to take it darker, and then I can adjust it. So without it, this is how it was, and it's richer now in terms of contrast. Let's say there's a stamp tool. Here the stamp tool, just like the patch tool, because with the patch tool I just select an area and I let Photoshop just kind of take information and patch it in. The stamp tool, I kind of control what's being patched. So if you press Alt, it changes the cursor, and you're telling it I want to kind of clone this area. So if I press here, it's taking information and it's doing it the same. And here you have to, so you select what kind of brush you're working with. Usually we work with a feathered brush so that it doesn't, it's not a harsh change. And you can change the size from here or with the brackets. And also you can work with the opacity so that if I make it lower, so it just won't take it completely as it is. So let's say I don't want this to show. So I'm retouching it in that sense. Sometimes you'd have an image that has like cables going through one building to another, and you just don't want it to show, so you can just select this cable to delete it. But you're kind of copy pasting from the image. Let's say I don't want this guy to be wearing red. I want to change only what he's the color of his jacket. So there are different ways of selecting. You can draw a path, which is the shape of the jacket, which is the pen tool here. But make sure when you're using the pen tool, up here you have this shape and this path. If it's shape, you're just drawing it, but if it's a path, you can save it as a path and it stays there, so you can use it to make the adjustment on it. And I'll just do different ways of doing this. So I'm just following the contours of his jacket. I'm just going to do it roughly for now. But you have to be more meticulous about it if you want good results. So here, next to layers, the end, you have path. It's called word path. If you want Photoshop to memorize it, double click it, and let's just call it jacket. So this is saved, and if you right click, make selection. Let's say we give it 1 pixel feather, so it's not harsh. On the layer, if I'm just changing the color, I'll go to hue and saturation. I'll just choose whatever kind of color I want. And see, notice here, because I didn't draw it well, and maybe I need to add the feather a bit, I can manipulate. But let's say I've done it, and I want to work with it as well. If I press Control or Command, it has the selection here. Here you have a quick mask mode at the end of the toolbox, which shows me how it's. So this is how it is, and I don't want. It gives me a chance to kind of retouch it. So if I use the brush tool or the eraser tool, so the brush on quick mask acts as an eraser. So if it's black, it will fill in. If it's white, the foreground color, it will erase. So what's not red, you can see that what's red and what's not red. So if I don't like my selection, I can always edit and adjust. So this shouldn't. And notice I use the feathered brush so that I don't have this sharp cut between them. I'm just going to do it roughly. So if I quit the quick mask mode, so here, how can I want to delete. So you see the white, I want to add this bit that I added in quick mask mode on white. So if I want to reverse my selection, and if I press Command Shift I, it selects the outer. So if I So here, if I deleted it, the mask is completely gone. Oops. took the same shape as the one I've drawn it. So it's just a way to edit your masks on the adjustment layer. And you can always, for example, I see here, I go to the quick mask and I just kind of go over it and over it until it's clean enough. If you don't want to go through the hassle of drawing the path, Photoshop gives you like shortcuts to do it. You have something called the magic wand, which is here. And under the magic wand, you have the quick selection and the magic wand. The quick selection is just kind of automatic way, so it will trace the outline of the man. Sometimes the outline is not that clear, and then you need to use the pen tool. So here it's just going to will follow the red, but see here, because it's not clear, it will take it off. So notice there's a plus sign in it. If you press Alt, it will turn to negative. So you can take that out. Oops. Took the pants, the trousers as well. It's just an automatic way of doing it. And also we can go into quick mask mode and refine the edges to make it cleaner. The Lasso tool as well is a way of, there's a polygonal lasso tool. So if I'm around, sorry. The magnetic lasso tool, it will follow the, I'm not doing anything, I'm just going along the outline, and it's magnetic, it's as if it's attaching to the outline itself. But it's not the most accurate rendering. But that's also another way of doing it. So let's say I'm going to use now the quick selection tool. I'm in a hurry, I just want the red bit. With the Alt, I just take out what's not wanted. And then I'll go to quick mask. See here the sharp edges. If you press Shift X, you're just shifting the foreground, the negative and the positive. And I just keep going. And then I can make my adjustment on the selection if I want. So hue and saturation, and I just change. I make it less saturated. I just change the color of what I want. I think I'll just take questions for now. This is like very, very basic introduction to Photoshop. If you want, I don't know why do you need to use it? What are the purposes of you using Photoshop and how? I mean, there's much more to Photoshop than that. They've added like the motion. If you can do animation on Photoshop now, just when there are many functions to Photoshop. It just depends on how you want to use it, basically. So, any questions? This has been really compact and concise. So.
When you're resizing a photo, you're kind of changing either sort of the number of pixels or the number of pixels per inch.
Yeah, number of pixels per inch. I don't. So here, I don't want to change how many pixels the image has already.
Yeah.
So this is why I need to make sure this is not checked.
Okay. You're keeping the same number of pixels and you increase the number of pixels per inch. Will that reduce the size of the picture?
But not the,
no.
But not the resolution?
Yeah.
It's not reducing the size because the number of pixels it's still in.
Not the data size, but the actual physical size. If you keep the same number of pixels per, say,
so here, if I want to make it smaller,
yeah,
the resolution would be higher. So it's 23 widths. If I say make it 15, the resolution.
It automatically increases the resolution.
Yeah. Image size would stay the same. If let's say I have, so here the only it's not a danger, but when you have resample image checked on, it's good if you're decreasing the size. You're not losing. You're getting rid of pixels. But it's when Photoshop is adding pixels in that you're losing quality and the image is being pixelated. But here, let's say I want to send this by email, and I just, to me, 96 ideally would be good. So here the number of pixels decreased, so it's tiny enough to go by mail. And if you go by save for web, it's doing that automatically for you as well. And here, if you're resizing, if you want to resize the image, Control A and Control T, and you just you press Shift and you make it tinier.
Is that changing the resolution as you do it?
So
the resolution of the image is still this, not really, because it's still the same.
So you're losing information.
Right.
It's just making the image tinier, but then I don't need this white space. I'm gonna crop it here, and maybe I didn't talk about the crop. I'm just cropping the image, so the image size is tinier.
The whole size and resolution thing is really complicated, isn't it? Really.
Because I find quite often you take a digital picture on the camera and you stick it on the computer, and what you have is this huge sort of image that's like 50 centimetres, but it's got a very low resolution, say like 72 dots per inch.
Yeah.
So
but if you make the image smaller, then the resolution will be higher.
Resolution.
So you change the resolution.
Which will make the image smaller on the screen.
Yeah.
But does that make the actual image size? Cause
it doesn't have a physical size until you actually
the
print
size
it out,
is the
does
same.
it?
Right, because I've had ones before that I changed the resolution and it's smaller on the screen, and I put it into a paper to submit, and I get, well, your image is 50 centimetres big. And I want to be able to reduce the size, the physical size of the image and the rest, but keep the high resolution. That does it.
I've never heard of anybody having a problem before. I mean, as in, it's not something that happens because it doesn't really exist.
So that's one way of doing it.
Until it comes to a publisher.
Yeah, I've had problems with the publisher.
If you go to crop here, let's say you wanted 300 resolution and you want the size, let's say 10 by 15.
Yeah.
If you put in 10 centimeters, 15 centimeters, and then when you crop, see how it's limiting my crop. This is the crop I can.
Yeah.
So the image, see how it's reduced. It's reduced. So this is the size now I have. So you tell it this is the size I want. But make sure you always keep an original size. And just say that. Is that clear?
It was one of these things that I came across that I kind of thought I'd solved it, and then
it wouldn't exist in any other format except when it comes to publishing.
Yeah.
Because if you make the resolution bigger, and on any other software, it will take the actual size of the image, and the size changes when you change the resolution, so that it's kind of regulated.
It's complex. With the layers, which I think using the layers properly is the key to Photoshop, isn't it, in many ways? Is it? Can you explain a bit more how you use the layers? Do you sort of put an anchor on the original?
You can lock it.
So if I'm editing, actually, so you'll notice there's the lock, this is the background. If let's say, if I'm editing anything on the image itself, I actually duplicate the layer. I call this the original. I call it original. This is my retouch layer. I do all the editing on it. So it's just a way for you to kind of know what you're working on, and these are adjustment layers. And if you want to add anything, let's say I want I can add another layer, and let's say I just want a circle. So it's better to have this on another layer so that you can just, oh, I don't want it here, I want it here. to not affect the actual information on the original image. And there's one thing I forgot to mention. When you're saving, so you have, like, let's say a JPEG you started with. When you add layers and you want to save, it's gonna save it as. So here, if I save directly, it will save it as TIFF. Let's say I save as. Here I have the options. Where's Photoshop? Okay, so Photoshop, it will keep this format with me with all the layers and everything. If I save it as JPEG, it will not keep the layers. So I always keep a Photoshop format for the image, where all the editing is happening. And then it depends on how I'm going to use it. If I'm using it for web, I'll keep it as JPEG. If it's for print, I need a TIFF because it's good quality. And with TIFF, you have the option to keep the layers. So even if I save it, I want to save it as Photoshop for now. It's just put it on the desktop. Oh, sorry. So here, notice it's ticked on layers because I'm saving it as TIFF. If I'm saving it as TIFF, if I take it off and I save it as TIFF, I will lose the layers. So, but for now, I'm just going to use it as save it as Photoshop. So I have the original file, the Photoshop, with all the editing is happening, and then it depends on where I'm going to use it. If I'm sending it for print, I'll save it as TIFF. Maybe I'd choose not to include the layers, but it doesn't matter. I have a file that has all the layers, so I save it as TIFF. If I'm saying that if I need it just for web JPEG, because JPEG compresses, so that the image quality, the size will be smaller. But just make sure if you've done like retouching of the image, just make sure you have the original file with all the layers.
So that's so that you can go back if you decide that you'd rather use it at a different level, primarily. Right, okay.
Because one image you think that, oh, I just need it for web, and then, oh, we're printing this again. So,
oh, yeah.
Oh, no. So, yeah.
Cool.
Anything else?
Are there any major changes between Windows Photoshop and Apple Photoshop?
No, there shouldn't be.
Okay.
It's the same software.
Right, so all the commands are...
The shortcuts, it's just because there's no... The command on Apple is controlled on PC.
Right.
So, but no, it should be the same.
Okay. Just remembering all those shortcuts, isn't it? I can never...
I mean, they're all here. Sometimes I forget how to get to them by here because I got used to the shortcuts.
It's quite useful to know the shortcuts, though. Is it just a case of remembering them? Are they actually? Or does it tell you? It tells you them next to the.
For example, if you go to image size, it tells you it's Command-Alt-I.
Oh right, okay, so they are there.
Yeah. It's just the more you use it, the more you get used to the shortcuts.
Brilliant. Okay.
Can you right-click on Mac?
Yeah, it's the right click here.
Okay, because on some older Macs you couldn't.
Oh, really? I think if you press Control and click, it's also done. It's the same. So here, actually, because you have many layers, if you Control-click, it will get you, go to the Retouch Layers. Because here, if you put on, you have an option here, it's Auto-Select. If you don't have it on, see here, I'm selecting Retouch, so it will move the retouched layer. So I cannot control anything else on other layers. But if you have Auto-Select on, I'll just do my circle. If it's Auto-Select on, let's say even if I'm on the retouched image, if I just put the cursor over the black, it will know that it's this layer, so it will take it. If it's not on and I'm on the retouch, even if I'm on it, it will change the layer I've selected. And one shortcut which I've just did, if you want to fill the foreground color, it's Alt-Delete, or the background color, Command-Delete.
Yeah. Any more questions? Okay. Brilliant. Thanks for that, Soulaf. It's really useful.
And if you need anything on Photoshop, there's Photoshop for Dummies. It's actually quite good. It explains everything.
That's what I'm using.
That's quite helpful because I've gone through it.
Oh, right, okay.
But, yeah.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Cheers.
coming.
Thanks for coming, guys.
I hope it was helpful.